Hey, this is Steve Halleck of TikToking.com. As always, you can find me at Steve Halleck on Instagram. And please subscribe to the channel, send these to your friends if you like them. I'm trying to share these watches with as many people as I can because I just know these are really rare and I geek out on this stuff and always wish that I could see them in the metal. So the closest I can get for you guys is to share as best I can when I get cool stuff in here. And this is one very, very cool watch. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Concept Watch 1. Hard to believe, but this watch was made in 2002. So way, way, way ahead of its time. And this was actually conceived inside Renan Papy, which is the movement maker that is now fully part of Audemars Piguet. But it was conceived sort of alongside the Richard Mille RM2. So you may want to see my video review of that piece as well for a little bit of context. But this is the Audemars Piguet concept watch, and it was the first concept and the only concept for a long time. Now they've made a few more, but this is usually called the CW1. Now there's a lot of really interesting features about this watch, and I'm going to go through them one at a time. The first is, this was the first watch to use this sort of push button, kind of like a gear shift in a car to change from winding to the hands to neutral, as they call it, which is the same system as in the RM2, but it's executed a little bit differently here, and I'm going to show you. One really interesting thing is this watch is actually quite water resistant. I want to say it might be 500 feet or something like that. I'm not, actually maybe it says it on it. Oh no, it doesn't. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but the watch is water resistant and you could actually like swim with it if you wanted. And because of that, the pushers and the crowns are both screw-in crowns. So let's screw them out and I'll show you how this works. This crown, which is the main crown, you know, normally you would wind and pull out and set and whatever. In this watch, it only has one position, which is screwed out. It doesn't pull out or do anything else. Everything else is done by this, which is actually a pusher. And so right now you can see that it's in neutral. If I press it again, we go into R, which means wind. It's the French, which is why it's not a W. In the Richard Mille, it's actually a W for that. But now, if I use this crown, the watch will wind up. You'll notice the markings here go up to 12, which is a little bit confusing. Those are actually turns per barrel. So that's the mainspring actually turning fully around. And it says up here, which is a little bit blocked by the hand, but you'll see it when I move the hands in a minute. It says 1 TPB, turn per barrel, per 6 hours. So each of those is actually 6 hours of power reserve. So we'll wind it up some. We don't need to go all the way. But this has also a special, the reason why it's denoted like that is it had a special barrel that they delivered that actually winds a little bit faster. So you get more power reserve for each time you wind it. So in fact, you get about a week of power reserve, but it doesn't, I'm sorry, it's like 5 days of power reserve, but it doesn't take that long to wind it. You see, we're almost done and I haven't actually turned it that many times. So that's pretty cool and a nice feature. And it's got a nice long power reserve, which is good because this is unlikely to be a watch that you're necessarily gonna wear and wind every day. So that's winding. Hit it one more time and it pops over to H, which is hands. Pretty self-explanatory. So now the crown will move the hands. So let's set it. It's actually 201 here right now. So I may as well just set it properly, right? 201. Oh, actually, I'm not going to do that because it's going to block the next thing that I'm going to show you, which is up here, a dynamograph. And this was the watch that debuted the dynamograph, which they used in a couple other high-end pieces. And that shows you the amount of torque in the mainspring barrel. So when it's high, you have good torque and you're gonna get good rate keeping. As the power reserve runs out, this may come down, and if it comes down too far here, you know you're not gonna get great timekeeping, even if there is some power reserve, so that shows you that. But anyway, so we've got this now. Now we can hit it one more time, and we're in neutral, and now that means we can turn this and it won't do anything, and we can screw it in and not risk messing up the time we just set because it's totally disconnected from the time-telling mechanism. So let's screw this one in too, and that's that. There's a bunch of other cool things here. You've got, of course, a 60-second running second counter there. Over here, you've got the tourbillon under this really crazy bridge. This bridge actually acts as a shock absorber. This, of course, is supposed to be sort of a beefy concept, diving, do anything in it watch. And so this squiggly shock absorber really helps with that. In addition, I hope you can see here, it's got a curved bezel and crystal. So this was the first Royal Oak to use this curved bezel and crystal. I think they've done it in 2 other pieces now. Maybe I think the lap timer has a curved crystal, and I think the Super Sonnery has a curved crystal, but you don't see it much. And it really is a cool take on the classic Royal Oak shape. Also, the case is made out of a material called alacrite, which is actually a cobalt alloy. This is the only watch I know of that's ever been made out of alacrite. It's really cool. It holds this polish and this brush finish very well, and it kind of presents a different finish than I've ever really seen. There you can see me and a nice little painting back there. It's so highly polished, but it almost is this, it's like a different kind of polish and texture. You can see it distorts a little bit, and that's because of the alacrite and just the kind of nature of the mirrored polish in it. And also this brushed part, it's just a little bit different. If you had it in your hand, you could tell, you'd be like, this doesn't really seem like steel, it doesn't really seem like titanium, it doesn't really seem like gold. It's just kind of something different. Weight-wise though, it's pretty heavy. It's probably a little bit less than gold, but it's more than steel would generally be, I think. And it's not a small watch, obviously, so it's got some weight to it. The back is pretty cool. The finishing is very, very, very nice. And you can see this cool like butterfly arrangement of the bridges and these wheels and a very high polished kind of movement holder here with all the writing on it. So let me show you the watch on the wrist. One kind of general knock against this watch, people used to say that it was unwearably big. And I don't know that I really agree with that. I have a pretty small wrist. It might be just slightly too big for me, but I have a 7-inch wrist, so most people are gonna have a little bit bigger wrist than I do, and I think it would work for a lot of people. Now, one trick that I find is I don't like the AP deployant, and this has a special deployant just for this concept watch that goes with the watch, and it carries on the kind of design motif. But I never like this AP deployant. It never sits right on my wrist. And so one trick that I've learned is to flip the ends. And so this goes up the top of my wrist instead of the bottom, and it makes it sit much, much better. So I'm gonna put this on and show you. I think that one of the reasons why people think it's way too big actually has to do with the shape of it and not necessarily the size of it. Because you can see that it actually doesn't really extend over my wrist. But because of the shape and the way it's like so chunky and the way that it tapers, it's almost like an optical illusion. It sort of looks bigger to the wearer than it actually is. But if you see it on somebody else's wrist, then it's not too crazy in size. And I actually think it looks pretty good. It's actually really nice to wear. It's easy to read the time, and I think it looks quite cool. One other thing is it comes on these Kevlar straps, and AP just made a kind of newer version of the strap. This is it, and it's shaped a little bit differently, and it's a little bit softer, and so this helps to wear it on smaller wrists too, because it conforms to the wrist a little better. I could probably tighten it up one hole, but I'm not gonna bore you guys with that. But there you can see how it actually looks. I wouldn't have any problem wearing this watch really. And if I had a little bit bigger wrist, I would definitely feel totally comfortable in it. So I think that idea of it being too big almost was a myth because of when the watch came out. Like, remember, it came out in 2002. And in 2002, this was an insanely big watch. But now, 16 years later, we're kind of all used to bigger watches, and it's not so crazy by today's standards. So next time you are talking to somebody and they say like, oh yeah, but it's unwearable or something like that, I think they're probably a little bit out of date with their information. Anyway, I really truly think this is one of the coolest watches that Audemars Piguet has made. It ushered in a whole new era for them. It was important also in the development of Richard Mille, and really brought in the modern age of highly technical this entire sort of technical, racing, mechanical motif used in all these things, and playing with the depth of movements, and really appealing to the technical side of sport watches, I think started quite a bit with this watch. So I think this is one that is going to go into the history books and will be important for years to come. And it's just a cool watch. Like, I don't know that many cooler watches have ever been made than this. So I'm happy to be able to share it with you. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys later.